Chapter 3 of The Lady in Blue by Auguste Groner, translated by Grace Isabel Colbron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Grave Flowers. "Where are you taking me, Walter?" asked Edmund Walroth as their auto moved slowly through the southernmost suburbs of the pretty Swedish city, Malmö. "To Sweden's most desolate coast," laughed Thorn. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the bronzed skin of the outdoors man and the keen eye and sensitive, capable hand of the artist, he looked the embodiment of health and strength beside his equally tall but frail and slender cousin. "That sounds cheerful," remarked Walroth. "I thought it was the beauty of this northern coast that charmed you, and that you wanted to show me." "It was pure selfishness on my part to get you here. I wanted you with me, and I wanted you to see my latest picture, the one I am just completing. I didn't know that we would ever have a week or two together again in the old cozy way, once you are married. Well, a new-baked husband is no fit company for a sensible man." "I'll try to remain sensible after a fashion," smiled Walroth. "And besides, there is beauty in desolation, you know," continued Thorn, his eye lighting with the passion of the true artist. "This stretch of coast we are going to, Falsterbo, once a thriving seaport town, then ruined and smothered under sand by successive storms, is so utterly wonderful, silent, and desolate, that it achieves beauty by that very quality. It is a great graveyard, with here and there a half-buried house, what is left of old patrician mansions, serving as dwelling for some poor fisher-folk. I'm finishing my picture there." "What is it, a portrait?" asked Walroth. "Yes, but not a portrait of a man or woman, statesman or beauty. It is a portrait of that desolate sea-coast. You'll sense it at once. The coast, I mean, its personality, the thing I have tried to put into my picture. There are fields of immortelles there, stretching for miles, waving sadly, like soft-hued ranks of mourners. That's what I've painted. A field of these grave flowers, the sand dune beyond, and the broken wreck of a vessel drifting forlornly on the waves. Sadness enough, in my eyes, to express the soul of that desolation. But the dear public wants its lessons in words of one syllable, clear and definite. And as we don't paint entirely for ourselves, and Mohammed will not come to the mountain must go to Mohammed. All of which means that an artist must consider the public, whether he enjoys doing it or not. So I have put a woman amid the immortelles, a woman walking through flowers as if towards a grave. Well, you'll see it." There was nothing of the desolation of which Thorn spoke in the landscape through which the two men were now passing. All was sunshine and early spring green, cheerful little houses, and gardens bright with early flowers. Walroth leaned back in his corner, his dark eyes full of a gentle happiness, as he stared out at the clear blue sky. Thorn smiled and bent towards him. "I wouldn't wager even a penny on your thoughts, for I know just where they are wandering. In Salzburg, eh? In a certain old grey house?" "That isn't hard to guess," answered Walroth. "You know how happy I am, in spite of everything." "In spite of everything? Nonsense! Why let one woman's narrow conventionalities spoil your life? But if that one woman happens to be my mother, my deeply loved mother, I know I'm not saying anything against Aunt Lenore. She is one of those rare women to whom any man looks up in respect and admiration. But in this case she has disappointed me. I had thought her more broad-minded. She judges from her point of view." "That's just it. She judges all women from her point of view, the point of view of a woman of wealth and position who has never had to struggle with life and its vulgar, sordid problems. She does not realize what life brings to other women who have to wade through its turgid stream. They cannot always keep their skirts white and clean." "Yes, that's just what irks me when I think of Elise, that turgid stream of vulgar life. That it should besmirch her," said Walroth slowly, with a deep sigh. "Which is why you took her off the stage at once and hid her in a lonely house outside a small town? Too bad some kind fairy gardener couldn't charm up a magic hedge around that house, through which you alone might pass," laughed Thorn. "You are right," replied Walroth good-humoredly. "I know I am madly jealous." "Justified? Is Elise especially desirous of admiration?" "Why especially?" "Because they're all coquettes, which is fortunate for us men, and for the dressmakers. Is your loved one such a sad coquette?" "I have found her reserved, rather than otherwise, but—" "Then there's a but?" "Her beauty is so extraordinary it can't fail to attract attention." "That's its chief reason. What would we poor artists do without beauty and beauties?" You'll be charmed with Elise when you meet her. I hope so, but you need not turn your jealousy my way. I have some principle, and I have furthermore a predilection for blondes. Your sweetheart is safe where I am concerned. Don't call her sweetheart in that tone. Whew, you are sensitive. I know what people think about what they call a chorus girl. They'll accept a star, and they'll be kind even to the second or third grade actress. But when it comes to the poor beginners in the chorus or small parts, our sort refuses to believe that such girls can have any refinement or decency at all. It's cruel and unjust. I'll do my best to be just, murmured Thorn, a bit amused at his cousin's intensity of feeling. Walroth did not notice it. I have always treated Elise as I would treat any lady, he continued eagerly, and at least since I have known her, she's always behaved like a lady. There were a few moments of silence as the wheels crushed the sandy road. Then Thorn spoke more seriously than before. Are you convinced that she always behaved like a lady, even before you knew her, or at least before you wooed her? Walroth raised his head a bit stiffly. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then shut it again until the lips formed a firm, straight line. It was some little time before he spoke. Yes, I am convinced of that. Thorn did not answer, but he began to understand that his aunt might have some justification for her stubborn opposition to Edmund's marriage. The moment of hesitation before the latter's answer showed Thorn his cousin was not entirely convinced that his beautiful future wife had always led the immaculate life she was now leading. There must have been something in her past that Walroth knew of, but which he preferred to ignore or keep hidden. And Thorn was more annoyed at the thought than he would have believed himself. He was no prude, but a gay-hearted artist who took life as it came. Had it been a mere passing infatuation on Edmund's part, or the usual affair, Thorn would have felt it to be of no concern of his, or of any member of the family, but Edmund himself. But this was a question of marriage. Thorn belonged to a fine old patrician family, which yielded to none in point of pride. When his father's sister had married the Austrian nobleman, her family accepted the latter, not because of his title and wealth, but because of his sterling character and true nobility of heart and brain. Many such marriages there had been in the family, but never one in which the shadow of a doubt could be cast on the bride's past life. Would Edmund be the first to break this rule of generations? The thought was not only unpleasant to Thorn, but decidedly surprising as well. Edmund had always, from a boy, been so sensitive, so keenly proud, so over-delicate in thought and feeling. Was it possible that such a man could be so madly infatuated with this girl's beauty that he was willing to marry her even though he doubted her purity? Thorn came to the conclusion that he had done his Aunt Lenora an injustice. Her judgment was tempered by worldly wisdom and possibly by information unknown to him. He decided that he would get into touch with his aunt very soon. If she knew anything definite that made Elise Lehmann undesirable or even impossible as Edmund's wife, he, Walter Thorn, would give her all possible aid in breaking off the match, not only from family pride, but because of his genuine affection for Edmund. He knew that a sudden sharp wrench would be easier to bear than a lifetime of disillusion. But he wanted to drop the subject now, and turned toward the western skyline, where a far-off silver strip of water sparkled and glittered. There's the sound already. We'll soon be in Falsterbo. The wagon rolled on over sandy roads, past isolated fisher huts where the people stared out at the motor as if at some strange, weird sight. They don't see many such hereabouts, said Thorn. Few people come here, for there's nothing to see or do except for a crazy painter like myself. And there's scarcely anything to eat and drink either, except what you take with you. Is that why we're so loaded down with packages? Asked Walroth. I thought it was merely because you were too particular. I didn't see you lunching on fish and dry black bread, laughed Thorn. I always load up like this when I go down here for a night or so, or even just for the day. It's more than primitive. There, look at that house. See how ridiculously wide the door is in proportion to its height? Half of it is buried under the steadily encroaching sand. Most of the houses here are like that, the fisher folk camping in the remains of half-buried stately homes of yore. The place is really quite fascinating. Here we are. They stopped at another wide, low doorway where a blonde young woman stood bowing humbly. Edmund looked around the big, plainly furnished, but immaculately clean old room. It is fascinating. It has atmosphere. I begin to understand your liking for it. Is that the picture?" He walked over to the easel that stood before one of the broad windows. Thorn busied himself at unpacking and laying out the good things he had brought with the help of their landlady. When all was ready, he turned to Edmund. Walrath was standing in front of the picture, his eyes fixed on the canvas, with an odd expression in them. They were focused on the figure of the woman in the center of the picture. Her face could not be seen, but the fine lines of cheek and chin spoke for beauty. Her head drooped. One delicate hand gathered the folds of her blue gown more closely around her. The other was stretched out as if to hide some horrible sight. Before her, amid the flowers, was a long trench, newly dug, beside which lay a spade. Immortelles everywhere, the sand dune beyond, a derelict floating dismally on the heavy gray sea, and a heavy gray sky over it all. "Do you like it?" asked Thorn, laying his hand lightly on his cousin's shoulder. "What does it mean? Why did you do this? Who is this woman?" Walrath passed his hand over his brow as Thorn looked at him in surprise. He seemed just awakening from a trance. "Pardon me, I don't know what happened to me. I seemed to see through and beyond this picture. It was like a window, and it was Elise, looking into a grave and staring back in horror from it. Oh, I am absurd. What can it mean?" His eyes were full of a queer, frightened pleading as he looked at his cousin. Walter felt a queer thrill himself as he listened, but he shook it off and laughed lightly. "It means that my picture caught you, that it did just what I wanted to do. You paid me a fine compliment." Walrath smiled faintly and followed Thorn to the table. He was silent during the meal, finding it hard to shake off the queer feeling that had come over him as he looked at the picture. It came again, and stronger, as he strolled out after lunch, leaving Walter at his easel for the finishing touches on the big canvas. The painter had in very truth caught the sad soul of these great stretches of faint-hued immortelles, with the heather beyond, the wide sea hemming in it. And again Walrath seemed to see, faint and far away, a vision of the beautiful woman whom he loved, to see her walking through these sad-colored grave flowers in the light blue she wore so often, and to see her stopping startled at the open grave that yawned before her. Sensitive though he was, Walrath was not in the least superstitious, nor given to such imaginings. He could not understand it now. He was glad when Thorn's cheery voice told him the picture was finished and that they could drive back to the greater comfort of the Malmo Hotel. "Are you as tired as you look?" Thorn asked through the open door between their rooms in the hotel as they were brushing up after their drive. "Shall we go down or have dinner sent up here?" "Oh, no, let's go down," replied Walrath. "I'm not used to the sea air, and it's made me sleepy, that's all. Come in," he added, as there was a knock at the door. A hall boy came in. "This letter came this morning after you'd gone, sir," he said, laying the letter on the table, as both Walrath's hands were occupied with the tying of his cravat. "A letter already?" teased Thorn, standing in his doorway. "Must have come on the wings of love." Walrath laughed. "Elise doesn't know where I am yet. The letter must be from Mother. She wasn't well when I left, and I wouldn't go until she had promised to write the very next day. She's so good." "She is, indeed. Why, Edmund, what's the matter?" Walrath, still busy with his tie, stooped to look at the letter, then snatched it up hastily. "It's an Austrian stamp," he said with a touch of irritation that Thorn did not quite understand. "Postmarked Salzburg. Well, doesn't that mean it's from your beloved?" Walrath looked nervous. "No, it's from the Salzburg police headquarters. What the deuce can they have to write me about?" He cut the envelope hastily and took out a big, official-looking communication. That queer pulling at his heart that had come over him at Falsterbo almost choked him now. Black mist gathered before his eyes as he read the lines. Ghastly pale, he staggered back to the table for support. "Good God, Edmund, what's the matter?" Hastily Thorn pushed up a chair. Walrath sank into it and handed the letter to his cousin. "Edmund, oh, how terrible! My poor boy!" There was true emotion in the painter's voice as he took the trembling hand Walrath held out to him in mute appeal. "How could she? Oh, why should she? Why?" Walrath's voice trailed away to an inarticulate murmur which was like a moan of pain. Then he raised his eyes to Thorn, and the latter shuddered at the horror and the suffering in them. "Can we start tomorrow? You'll go with me?" Walroth's tone was dull and numb with grief. "Surely, surely I'll go with you." Thorn hurried into his own room and returned with a railway guide. "We can get a boat tomorrow. We'll be in Salzburg in 2 days." "Walter," Walroth's voice, still strangely dull, broke the pause. "Was that what I saw in your picture today? I saw her?" A sudden chill struck even to Walter Thorn's gay heart. He pressed his cousin's hand in silence, and before the mental vision of both men, touched now into dreadful life, appeared the picture of a beautiful woman helplessly drawn toward the open grave, yet starting back from it in horror. End of chapter 3.